Hi everyone, welcome and welcome back to Unwind Flow Yoga. For today's practice, we're going to be doing a yin class for the outer hips. The only props that you'll need is a blanket or a towel, so grab that, get into something comfy, and meet me lying down on the back. So we're going to get started here lying down, and we'll keep our knees bent. So we're making our way to lie down onto the back. Bend the knees here, feet on the floor, and then walk the feet a little bit wider towards the edges of your mat so that the inner knees can knock in towards each other. And then we'll just settle in here, allowing the entire body to be heavy. Finding this position of rest. See if you can let the whole body just drop in. Bringing your awareness to your breath here, drawing the breath in through the nose and release out through the nose. Take a few more cycles just like that. Seeing if we can connect our physical sensation of dropping into our mat with the breath. On each exhale, allowing the body to get a little bit heavier. Noticing any areas of the body that might be resisting here to the sense of dropping in. Acknowledging that's okay. Nothing we need to force here. Allowing everything to come naturally. Breath cycles in and out. Body falls heavy down onto the floor. Enjoying this little bit of stillness here before we get a little bit more specific into the outer hips. And if you feel like you're there in your mind, start to bring your attention to the outer hips. See if you can notice what this area means to you right now at the beginning of class. Without much context or information, just notice what stands out. You think about the outside of the hips. This is an area that for many of us can get tight with all of our sitting. And if that's something that you connect with, see if you can be a little bit more objective with it, rather than tying in story or emotion. Recognize here that these are tissues that we just need a little bit of space. See if you can keep that quality of observation as we move through our poses. And then let's start off with our first pose here. So separate the inner knees here, walk the feet back in line with the hips. Let's start off with our left leg. So left knee will hug in towards the chest. Softly interlace the fingers along the front of your left shin. Allow the weight of the arms to draw the knee a little bit closer in towards you. And then we'll start to bring in a little bit of movement here. So we won't have too much movement in our class today, but just as we get started, start to bring the left knee out towards the left, back towards that starting point, and then over to your right. See if you can gently move the knee back and forth. And you might even like just using one hand, so maybe the right or left arm is just there. If you need more space, you can always walk the right leg a little bit further away, so you can draw the left knee a little bit more towards the right, and then stopping just when you start to feel that little bit of stretch, and then bring your movement back in. Starting to notice where those tissues are in your body that might need a little bit of a stretch here. Next time you're back through center, walk the right foot back close and towards you if you walked it away, and then cross the left ankle over the right thigh. We need to supine pigeon. Before we pick up the legs, just take a moment here in this shape. Think about drawing the left knee away from the body, so the left knee away from the left shoulder. So maybe you can keep the hips level here so that there's a tendency to perhaps fall on towards the left side, so the left hip is a little lower, so you can keep them level. And if you're comfortable there, feel free to stay, but if you'd like a little bit more, lift the right foot off the mat, interlace the fingers behind the right thigh. Keeping the head, neck, and shoulders soft here as you draw the legs in towards you. Beginning a hold here for a few breaths. Noticing that this is our first phase of our class, so our first exploration into our outer hips. No rush here to achieve a certain objective. Having that intention just of noticing what stands out. And if a lot of things are standing out to you right now, see if you can pinpoint just one. Take another breath in. Exhale, slowly let it go. Release the legs. Uncross, left foot to floor. Pause here. Noticing the rebounding effect of your pose. Noticing how the left side of the body may have changed. Then we'll repeat that on our right side. So hug the right knee in towards the chest. Interlace the fingers along the front of your right shin this time. Just take a moment to find that center point. And then start to bring that movement in. Right knee to the right. Then bring it across the body, maybe crossing that center line over to the left. Remember, we're just looking for that initial sort of stretch of the tissues over to the side. If you have tighter hips, you might feel that kind of right as you hit the midline, or you might need to go a little bit further. If you need a little bit more space, once again, you can walk the left leg further out or maybe all the way out. Movement can be as fast or as slow as you like. Next time you're back through center, we'll come into our supine pigeon. So left foot to floor, across the right ankle, over left thigh, and then give yourself a moment before you lift the legs. Raise the right knee away from the right shoulder. Flex through your right toes. And then notice what you can let go of while still keeping the integrity of your shape. So right hip level with the left. And then if you like, bring the left foot off the floor, interlace the fingers behind your left thigh, and find a shape that makes sense for you on this side. Recognizing once again, we're just exploring. Well, this is a new side we're exploring, so what we learned on our first side might help us here, but it might not. There might be something new for us to learn. See if you can let yourself notice what is. And then reconnect to the breath. Noticing the gentle rise of the chest on a breath in and release on a breath out. Keep holding your shape here for a few more cycles. But if you need to back off, that option is always available to you. Take another breath in. And then on an exhale, slowly release, uncross the legs and pause there. Once again, feet find the floor, arms are by the sides. From here, hug both knees into the chest, wrap the arms around the legs. And then roll over onto one side. We're just going to make our way up into a seat. Taking your time here, no rush to get there. Once you're up, this might be the time that you would like to grab onto your blanket. So I just have a folded blanket here, and we're going to come into Baddha Konasana. I'm going to face you, but you can face any direction. Putting my sit bones onto my support here, and then allow them to come slightly off, so I'm sitting more towards the front of our sitting bones. Bring our feet into Baddha Konasana, so soles of the feet together, knees are wide. And our legs can be in any diamond shape here, whatever makes sense for you. But think about bringing this inner seam, so the big toe side of the feet together. Mine like to kind of flop apart here, but we want to bring our feet together like we're closing a book. Keep the hands on the legs here, wherever is comfortable for you, and just create a nice tall spine there. Option is to stay sitting up tall here, or if you like, you can start to fold forward. And I want you to think about hinging from the hips. So hinging right from our outer hips that we just brought our awareness to. As we come forward, bring the chest closer towards the feet. See if you can find a spot where you just start to feel that sense of stretch. So when our yin practice, we're not pushing ourselves to our very max capacity or max range of motion. We're just looking for that initial tug on the tissues. Once you found it, if you'd like a little bit more in the arms or on the legs, you can always gently press the legs a little bit further down towards the ground, keeping the integrity of the shape. So feet touching, hinging at our hips, chest forward. Holding here for a little bit longer. And for this one, just see if you can keep your focus on the breath. Seeing if the breath creates a little bit of space for you. Maybe the knees drop millimeters down towards the ground. Take another breath in. And exhale, soften. And then on that next breath in, come back through center. So sitting up tall. And then straighten the legs. So take the hands behind you and just allow the legs to flop out in front. Maybe give them a little bit of a shake. And then for this next one, we're going to sort of build on what we just did in Baddha Konasana, coming into a wide leg shape. So in Yin, we call this a dragonfly. So we're just taking our legs a comfortable width apart. Again, we're not forcing a long, super intense stretch here. We're just looking for that initial tug on our tissues. Fingertips behind you. Once again, create a tall spine. And what we're looking for here is, for some of us, as we take our fingers away, we might get this rounding of the spine. We want to keep it tall so we can really connect into this outer hip area. Now that we've given ourselves a moment to settle into this shape, you'd like to bring the fingertips forward. If you can keep the height in the spine, start to walk the fingers forward. Again, we're just looking for that initial tug. So I found it here for myself. In addition to feeling our outer hip in this pose, you might feel a little bit more of the inner thighs here as well. And in the areas that we're targeting here, it can be one of those poses that's a little bit more resistant, and some of that resistance does come from the mind. This need to protect ourselves as we are fairly open in this shape. See if you can use the breath, reminding yourself that you're safe here, you're doing something good for you. Maybe take this time to tell yourself something positive. And maybe you notice you created a little bit more space there to come forward. And if not, that's okay too. We'll be here for another 2 breaths. And once you finish that cycle, slowly walk the fingertips back in. Bring the legs back in towards each other. Don't have to be all the way though. Take the fingertips behind you. Once again, just let it go. Noticing a sense of rebound in the legs. Great, so coming back through center, our next pose here, we're going to come into Gomukhasana. So I'm not going to mirror you for this one. I'll go same side as you. So I'm going to hug the right knee into the chest, and we're closing off the knee joint here. So we can pick the right foot over the left, and we're sliding the right foot over to the left side of our mat so that we're on the pinky edge of our right foot. And then you have the option to keep the left leg extended. This can be nice if you want to get a little bit in your hamstrings as well. Or you can take your bottom leg, your left leg, and tuck it underneath so our knees are in this stacked shape, adjusting your support so we feel both sitting bones are still connected to the floor. If you notice as you brought the bottom leg under, this top sitting bone is lifting up, that might be a sign to straighten the bottom leg. Keeping both hips heavy here, nice tall spine. We'll just take our hands and rest them on the thighs. Giving ourselves these first few moments to notice the sensations of our pose before we add in. If you find you have a little bit more space here, we can take this into a forward fold. So same principles as before, we're hinging at our hips to come forward, and the belly can sort of rest on the thighs as we come forward. You can take your hands and rest them on the feet. Sometimes I like this variation as we're sort of closing the loop of our pose with our hands connected to the feet, or you can walk the fingertips out in front and drop the head. As we stay in this pose for a few breaths here, a little bit of time, really thinking about the outer hips here. So one might be standing out to you. They might feel different, they might feel similar. For me, my top hip, so the right, stands out a little bit more. And then over time, the left sort of starts to catch up. Since we're focusing our awareness in this pose, especially on the outer hips, notice what you can let go of in your pose. So maybe you have a little bit of tension in the feet or in the shoulders, maybe the elbows if the arms are forward. Keep the hips heavy. Notice where you feel a stretch. And then drop into that. Take another breath in. Exhale. And then slowly make your way back up through center. Uncross the legs and just allow them to hang out in front there. After we close off our knee and our hips, just giving them a moment to be open. Maybe feeling some fresh circulation. And then second side, so hug the left knee into the chest. Left knee steps over the right, and then slide the foot all the way over so we're on the pinky edge of the foot. Option to keep the bottom leg extended or hook the bottom leg underneath, and then readjust yourself on your support so you feel both sitting bones heavy. Make any adjustments to the angles of the legs, and let's just rest the arms. Feel a tall spine. Notice the connection here. Hips, spine, shoulders, crown of the head. Give yourself a moment to check in. And then as you're ready, if you'd like to fold forward, take that option, moving the hands down to the feet, if that makes sense, or taking the hands out in front. No rush to create a certain shape or feel a certain sensation. Starting with just that first little bit of sensation and allowing yourself to go deeper onto that. Not in a physical sense, but as we bring our awareness, we sort of expand that sensation. Notice what we can learn from it, where it begins and ends. And as we take our awareness deeper into those sensations, we notice what falls away, what drops away. And on the first side, I was talking about how we can drop in physically, so we can soften our elbows, soften the head as we keep the sitting bones heavy. Maybe on the side, you start to notice what falls away from a mental perspective as we focus our attention. Things that we don't need to think about just fall away. Take another breath here. And then as you're ready, walk the fingers back through center. Let the legs go, so straighten them once again. Maybe give them a little bit of a shake on this side if that would feel good after those poses back to back, two sides back to back. And then for this next pose, I'm going to remove my blanket, but we're going to start off in Baddha Konasana. And I'm going to turn to face the side of my mat, but you can continue facing whatever direction makes sense for you. For this one, we're going to come into deer pose. You may not have seen this one before. It's not as common a hip opener as like a pigeon or spine pigeon that we did earlier, but it's one that I enjoy because there's a little bit more room to play. So I'm going to keep my right leg where it is, bend the left knee so it's pointing up towards the ceiling, and then I'm going to take my left hand onto the left shin, pick up the leg, and then rotate the hip so that the thigh bone is sticking straight out to the side from my hip, and my leg is creating this 90-degree angle. And I'm going to adjust the front leg as well so it's approaching a 90-degree angle as well. For this one, our right sitting bone, so the leg we didn't move, this leg should be really heavy into the ground. This other one might be a little bit away from the floor, but we still want to keep this in tension, like we have weight mostly even between both of our sitting bones. And then once again, we'll just start by sitting up tall. So see if you can create a straight spine here. And whether this is a new shape for you or if you've done it before, see what you can notice about these sensations. And then as we stay here for a little bit longer, you might notice you need a little bit more. So we can start to walk the hands forward. And you might start to meet some resistance right away. I do, especially on my right side. So take your time to pause once you find it. And although I start to meet resistance fairly quickly in this pose, I often create more space the longer I stay here. So that might be your experience as well. I'm going to stay pretty upright for now. Taking this opportunity to listen. You can think back to the beginning of our class when I asked you to think about the outer hip area before we had done really any poses. Maybe comparing that to the information that you have now. And if you feel settled here, come back to the breath. Acknowledging that as our home base, our point of comfort here is the breath. Take another breath in. Exhale, let it go. And then when you're ready, slowly make your way back to the center, hands behind you, and then take both feet to the mat. And we'll just take a moment to pause here. Whatever shape makes sense for you, maybe even windshield wipering the legs a little bit side to side. And then our second side. So we'll start the same way. Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together, knees wide, fingertips behind you to really lift up and out of the hips. Bend the right knee this time up towards the ceiling, and then use the right hand to shift the thigh bone so it's pointing right out to the side of your hip, and then start to create these two 90-degree angles with the legs. Once you've found it there, connect left sitting bone heavy into the floor and get that intention on the right as well, even if it's not touching completely the same. Fingertips out to the side or wherever's comfortable, just to create a tall spine. Noticing that first little bit of sensation in your pose on the side. And then once you feel like you need a little bit more, you can start to crawl the fingertips forward. Noticing where you first meet that little bit of sensation. So on this side for me, we can go a little bit further right away, but where I feel a little bit differently is I start to feel a little bit of a tug in my right hip as well. Noticing a sense of balance between both hips. And then see what you can let go of there. See where you can drop in. Knowing that we'll be here for a little bit longer, do you need to back off a little bit? Are you in a position where you've created a little bit more space you can drop into? Noticing here how this shape doesn't necessarily mean automatic for you. It might not have a template that's the same every time you come into it, like you might for some of our other poses. Noticing that as your opportunity to play around with your shape, do something a little bit different. Take another breath in. Exhale, let it go. And then from here, slowly start to walk your way back up. Same exit, fingertips behind you. Bring the legs out in front. Find a moment of stillness. Wiggle the legs. Movement or no movement, your choice. And then from here, we'll come to lie down onto the back. We're going to come into a twist, hugging both knees into the chest to start, and then allow the knees to fall over to your left side, perhaps. And then if you need a little bit extra here, you can use the left hand onto the top of the right thigh. Find somewhere where you can give it just the weight of the arm, so no pressing on the thigh, but just the weight of the arm dangling. You can look wherever is comfortable for you, over to the left, or you can look over to the right. Right arm is straight out from the shoulder or in cactus, whatever you have space for. Noticing yourself creating space from your right shoulder all the way down the right side body towards the right knee. As we remain still just a little bit longer, to gain this opportunity, start to imprint this practice on the mind, thinking about all that you were able to notice. And matching that with positive intention, taking this time to say something good to yourself. Take another breath on this side. And then on an inhale, come back through center. Before switching sides, pause through center. Find your center line once again, so body is mostly straight. Can you feel a difference between the right side and the left side? And then when you're ready, knees hug in, falling over to your right. You can take the left arm straight out. Right hand can be a little bit of a weight on the outside of the left leg. And on this side, I'm going to give you a little bit more silence. So we move closer towards Shavasana. You feel like your mind is getting closer to that restful state, just bring the awareness to the breath. Feel the breath uncomplicated, traveling in and out of the body. Deciding here if there's anything else you'd like to let go of. Maybe in your physical pose or in the mind. Take another breath in. Exhale, let it go. And then inhale. Slowly make your way back through center. Find that center line. Before we come into our Shavasana, we'll come into Supta Baddha Konasana. So soles of the feet together, knees wide. Feel the inner line of the feet touching, the outer line of the feet touching. Arms can be yours ever comfortable, out to the sides, resting on the body, maybe even overhead if you'd like a little bit more opening through the chest. Returning to the intention that we started our class with, of allowing the body to be heavy. We're dropping in, sinking in. Any tension that we're experiencing here is drifting off of us and off of our mat, pulling away. Noticing the stillness that we feel left over. Take another breath in. Exhale. And then as you're ready, either straightening the legs or taking the hands towards the outer thighs, bring the knees to face the ceiling, and then straighten the legs out for our final pose. Give the legs a little bit of a wiggle so our toes drop out to the sides. Noticing the space that we created in our outer hips to support that. As we drop into our Shavasana, once again returning to this positive intention, sending yourself gratitude to yourself for making it to your mat today. And we'll rest here for a moment or two in Shavasana. Let you know when it's time to reawaken. as you bring your awareness back to your presence here on the mat. Start to take a little bit of a deeper breath. Start to wiggle the toes of your little fingertips. Point and flex the feet. Circle the ankles. Take the arms up and overhead. The arms coming down by the sides as the knee bends. And then take yourself over to one side. Use your arm as a pillow. No rush to rise up, but when you're ready, start to make your way back up to a seat. Any seat that's most comfortable for you. Finding a tall spine. Maybe noticing that it feels just a little bit more comfortable to sit here in any orientation. Finishing up our class by bringing the hands towards the heart. Take a breath here to extend gratitude to yourself for making it to your mat today. I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I hope I'll see you again soon. Namaste.